What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rebirth of the Word video presentation. This video is a discussion that I had with Paul and Fear. Paul is somebody I had a discussion with about a year ago, and Fear I met this year. He actually watched my video with Paul that I had last year and asked if he could have a discussion with him because he had some questions, and that led to this discussion. Well, jumping right into it.
There's that secondary point. Where do you think what part of our brain perceives that light to what we think it is?
Well, certainly, we have in popular metaphysical literature the pineal gland, like we were discussing. But I think uh, the consciousness, that is you or I or anyone, that consciousness is not located in the brain. The brain is a an organ that consciousness filters through into the body, but that consciousness itself is separate. So that light coming in, um, well, I guess it does have to make it to the body, right? So it has to come from that inner light. It becomes the inner light. But I would say also there is an outer light that is a completely different experience. The inner and the outer are what are called synchronistically connected. It's entangled quantum particles.
Mhm.
If that makes sense to you, I don't know.
Yeah, being connected to the God source.
That's like the light within us, right? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, well, I'm certainly saying that light within us there is. I mean, we can get all sorts of Kabbalistic and talk about, the Tetragrammaton and how that becomes the light LVX, and that connected with the Ein Sof hour. And again, I said too much there. I think it's too technical, at least for a conversation like this, because we're not talking Kabbalah per se, but we want to talk in explanatory ways that makes sense to people.
Yep.
And the light, uh, it's so effortless. There's so much charlatanry around seeing the light, and astral projection kind of goes in there with it. um Close your eyes and imagine your car parked in the driveway or wherever you have it. Can you see what color it is? Can you see the tires? The windows wound up. Can you see, yesterday's newspaper strewn on the back seat, that kind of thing. Um, well, you're now using your pineal gland. You're now using your, astral vision, and you've now astrally projected. It's really that easy. So the work becomes getting from understanding that intuitively and then experientially, and then getting deeper into that you see the light coming in from within, and you'll find that light really is a metaphor. Don't go looking for a band of light being shot by the ray gun of the divine Oompa Loompa flying in the sky.
We
It's a sensibility. Okay, go ahead.
we talked about astral projection last time, and I've read the Bible so many times since we last talked. I've read the ancient Hebrew version, I read the Septuagint, I read the New International King James version, and every time I read something within it that has to do with something like a vision, I always have to play it in my head as astral projection. I don't know why, because when they describe like the body moving or being taken in some sort, it's through a vision, and it's like with the word spirit or something like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't remember. There's many different types of Gnostics out there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's quite a few. If you look at the, ancient Gnostics, and very few if you look at the modern Gnostics.
What is the difference, and what do you place yourself in? Because I don't think we actually talked about that last time.
I'm not an ancient Gnostic. I'm a
Okay.
modern Gnostic. I'm promoting the Gnostic Church of Light as a
Okay.
modern form of Gnosticism.
Right. And what's the difference though between them? Because
Okay, I think for starters, let's look at ancient Gnosticism. So, there's scant evidence, and uh, one text survives the centuries and comes to the fore. Uh, I don't know whether it's 100 years before Nag Hammadi is discovered. Then these Nag Hammadi documents emerge,
yeah,
and we really only have that one source plus Irenaeus assessment. And the Nag Hammadi shows, several more sects and what their ideas were about, and yet they're not fully understandable in a modern context. The one sect, the Valentinians, is probably the most popular sect because it's most like the Roman Church, and people are still praying to Jesus. And Jesus is Yeshua is the Savior. Um, the Gnostics had a more nihilist understand hatred for the world. Uh, Probably worse than the Abrahamic tradition in general. Uh, but it was just really an alternative universe. It was a rebellion against the Roman Church. Other sects, like I'd say closest to Thelema, are the Sethians, and they had an altogether different concept because the divine light goes into the Adamus, and the Adamus becomes the archetypal force that would become his brother Set. And Seth, I said Set, I should have said Seth.
yeah,
Um, and Seth becomes like the Adam Kadmon for the creation of humanity. So it's a Jewish line. And there's all sorts of other little different lines and disputes within these various lines
right.
that we have some records of. But basically, um, the whole Jesus concept just pretty much overwhelms everybody back to Christianity, and so they do the archons, which are the evil angels in their minds, and it's just like the little devils, with the demiurge being the big devil that created the world. So let's put that away for maybe forever, and let's look at modern Gnosticism. It's really an existential and phenomenal investigation into yourself, and it's who and what you are, and uh, it encompasses the various facets of your being, and what spiritual expression is, but it's as simple as determining a career and how to contribute to the world, how to find that inner voice in yourself that will bring something out into the world, and that's your creativity, and that's your passion, and you got to follow that, and if you follow that, you will come to gnosis, keeping the spiritual in mind, and you know we have um we have holy books, and we have metaphysical ideas that are dispersed about,
Yep.
and I keep a full blog, so the ideas are really there.
And I'll let you go in a second, Trevor, because this is fascinating. I'm telling you, listening to what he says and just, I mean, you got to. That's why I told you got to get the TikTok because his videos are short and sweet and they're straight to the point. There's none of that fluff and none of that other stuff that goes on. But it's interesting you say that. Um, uh, can you remind me what does gnosis mean again?
Gnosis is a knowledge combined with experience that brings understanding.
Okay, yeah, that's why I always say knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I say that a lot. But go ahead, Trevor. I'm sorry, bro.
Good. Oh, you're good. No worries. It's the understanding and the knowledge in these Gnostics because this was brought up in the last discussion. I'm just gonna just read my notes as I wrote them down.
Go
It
for
says
it.
the same. You said the same Gnostics basically reenacting their guessing game. My question is, do you think they could also be the ones holding the knowledge, like of the mystery schools back? And well, personally, I do. But is this that the knowledge that everyone should have, where where this is where the kind of like a split question comes in. Are they the ones that telling these old arts are taboo or the satanic, as the Catholic Church would say today? Like that's the devil's work or blasphemy. It's evil stuff. Um, could these old Gnostics be the same ones having us running around in circles?
Well, first of all, the Pythagoreans hated the Gnostics. The Gnostics were doing a hodgepodge of Greek philosophy, mixing it in with their man god idea. Okay, Jesus the Logos was just a man god, Dionysus, Serapis, and so many others. The story was so common as to be such a bore. Oh, now they're calling him Jesus. And
Yep,
all
totally
these
Egyptian priest king
well,
Hermes.
all these gods died and were brought up from the dead in one way or another. All these gods were sons of mortal women, something called parthenogenesis. And so you had this semi-mortal being that was both man and God. And that became Jesus in our culture. But
A
if you
demigod.
go back to the culture it emerged from, it's it's a very rich culture that the Gnostics really addressed sideways, sort of. They imitated, they uh, recreated certain ideas and distorted others. They were trying to do their own thing,
Yeah.
and that's really basically what it comes down to.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Um, in the last discussion, since we're going kind of like down touching the religion topic, um, through all the religions in the world, do you think that there's a piece of every religion that's the key to putting the bigger picture together? Through
I think
Gnosticism, the search of knowledge and experience.
let's define religion, because I think we're going to need to speak on the same terms
I
then.
like
Okay.
that. I like that. And
Okay.
you know why
Okay.
that's so funny? That
Whether you consider it bastardized Western religion, Catholicism,
How can we
or
talk about bastardized Western religion until we've talked about Western religion so that we know what's bastardized?
okay, the difference between let's just say baptism, for example,
Well,
and,
what is religion? I'm trying to take it just one step underneath it.
okay,
What is religion? When you
um,
tell me the offhand comment you made, what is religion?
to me, religion is basically to where you're so head over heels for something that you direly live your life by it, strictly to it. You practice it day in, day out, every waking dogmatic day. It's the study of what you believe in, going deep into that, but kind of putting yourself in a box at the same
So
time.
religion involves believing. It is a belief system.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I told you Gnosticism is not a belief system and that I can lump all the world's religions together as superstitious nonsense, then we start all over with the concept of what a religion might be, how we can live doctrinally a spiritual life. And so we say that you got to find your inner self and bring that out. That's your inner passion. You got to learn to follow that voice and not what the world hears for you. And you create your soul through your creative experience. And that path for you to gnosis is not the same as mine or anyone else's path. Each has their unique path. So we're not going to per se give you, doctrinal exercises and um, rules to follow. Uh, but we'll say here's some ideas like learn how to focus in on that light, listen to your inner voice, do some reading, understand the humanities, know the sciences and the arts, and participate in some form of art. Bring the things that bring strength to your soul and help you to formulate your identity, your individuality, and become someone and become something. And however you get there, man, is how you get there.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
we could,
no, I 100% believe it, like agree and everything that you just said. Through my walks of life, being growing up in the church and stuff, like single digits all the way like through youth group in the teenage years, going through even going to church in the military, I even went to college for pastoral ministries, and then I red pilled myself. So in between then and now, I've considered myself more agnostic because I'm seeking more for knowledge, and through my
okay.
experiences shaping who I am.
But
And
I
through
would
my
I would
journey,
ask you, why do you keep looking for that invisible friend in the sky?
no, I'm not looking for the invisible friend in the sky. I'm looking for the connection to all of it. Not
Well,
as a not a magical.
the connection to all of that is the invisible friend in the sky.
Okay, well, I am a firm believer that there is a creator. Like we
The
are.
invisible friend in the sky, because now you don't have to take the responsibility for creating yourself.
Oh no, I do take responsibility because everything on
Well, then
here is
there's no
my action.
creator except yourself.
The only judge is ourselves.
The only creator is yourself. The only judge is yourself. The only forgiver is yourself. The only teacher is yourself. Now, you started creating yourself from your very first breath, and you slowly began to figure out the world around you. Your experience with the world started to shape you, and the common person, falls into it. I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to get married, make 2.3 babies, have a 2.3 car garage. And so the plan gets made, and you follow because the world tells you to do that. The lunatic says, "No, I'm going to paint, man. I'm going to get myself some small little place in the middle of a deep hole somewhere, so I only have to pay $1 a month, and I can afford to buy paint supplies. So I'm going to put up my easels." And your mom's going to cry because I'm never going to get a good wife. And so you have the world making its demands. And what price are you going to pay for your particular passion? Now, your particular passion could be, opening up a ski shop and you're going to sell skis and sweaters. And that could be your passion. I don't know what your passion is, but when you find it, you find your contribution to the world. And with some spiritual praxis, you can take that to the realm of mystical experience.
I like how you put that because
Yeah.
the last time we spoke, we did have almost this same discussion because I almost asked the same question and you almost kind of put it in the same way, in different terms, of course. Um, it's it's interesting because it does fall back to that individual in the sky, if that's what we're going to call it or whatever, right? Because that's what religion goes back to, is looking up to something other than ourselves. And you did explain that to me before. That's why our whole discussion was looking within and stuff like that. And that's why I wanted to have this discussion.
As soon as God is not me or I am not God, I have been disempowered, and so has God. Because if God is not me, then God is not infinite. And if I am not God, then I have no power. Only God has the power. And so the religions of the world work with that through a system called belief. And they deride your personal experience. You got to believe and in accordance, and here's the scriptures, and you got to do it this way.
Yeah.
If God tells you to kill your son, go kill him. If he
Yeah, we
tells you to
talked
rape
about
all the
that.
women in Scandinavia, go attack Scandinavia and all the women. They'll be blondes,
Dogmatic rule.
so you better like blondes. Hmm?
Dogmatic rule, or is that just the power of suggestion of like God said go do this? Am I going to believe it automatically?
Well, dogma is doctrine. So these are synonyms, these two words. And so you can hold to a doctrine like the Gnostic Church of Light um, has its doctrine. It has its doctrinal teachings, but these are not impositions. These have nothing to do with law. It's kind of like, recommending look both ways before you cross the street.
Yeah.
But here's how
Suggestions,
you
Stephen.
do certain things. I'm oversimplifying it there, but um, we have a doctrine, and um, it's actually as a as a philosophical system, it can get very intricate and with lots of prescription on both uh, exercises and expectations and experiences. So
Yeah.
um, we can get deeply into it for the person that wants to become the night monk. But also, the Gnostic Church of Light is about, the family in its same way. And so, we give, a Rosicrucian Mass once a month, and it's a Eucharist of five elements and a knowledge lecture on various existential themes, maybe tending a little bit more adult-like there. But even the other elements of the Mass are, in a sense, very adult-like, but I don't mean adult as in, dirty movies or dirty ideas, or sexual ideas that maybe shouldn't be expressed in front of young kids. Um,
Just more grown from the church.
Yeah, we talk more to grown-ups and more it's more that the kids won't be interested. But the indoctrination there becomes you know, uh the virtues that we do discuss and why those virtues are important. And then you decide for yourself. We're not running around telling you, did you break your vow to the
Right.
big
Thou
daddy of
shall
the
go
God?
do this.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'll be right over. We'll do it together.
The ultimate lie. We'll do it together.
Well, the idea of a God forbidding you anything is a folly, and a God punishing you for anything is an attack against yourself. Okay, you have the right, and you have the right to every exigency, every feel good. A recent video I just did, where we talk about, whether you get up in the morning and you have that cup of coffee and a half a pack of cigarettes, or you come home from work and you have a couple of beers and a joint. These things are not a sin. These things are affirmations of your divinity. You are allowed to have Miller time as a king. And whatever your vices are, as long as you don't veil them, in virtuous words, and saying, what you do is what you do, and you shouldn't have any guilt for it either. I'm saying we got together last night, we snorted a couple of bags, and it was really a good time, and ain't
Jordan, a
nobody's
couple rails. It
business
was
but
awesome.
your own, right? So it is, whatever is your pleasure, and whatever is your desire. There are laws against certain behaviors. You know what I'm saying? You get caught with those couple of rails and you're fucked. You know what I'm saying? You're in big trouble if you fuck your neighbor's daughter. So I mean, you got to decide the limits of your behavior and the price you're willing to pay for it. After that, so to speak, nothing is wrong. If you want to go to jail for 8 to 20 years or whatever, then go your neighbor's daughter. It's not for us to say. Now the three of us can sit there and say, "Well, that's hideous. What a terrible thing to do." But we can't deliver "thou shalt nots" to others. They have to learn, and they will pay the price for the experience and for what they do.
Instead of thou shalt not, shouldn't we be teaching people thou shalt will learn the repercussions?
Do what thou will.
Do
Almost
what
like
thou will
almost like
learn that learn learn the repercussions after, I
Your
guess.
will, your will is formed from your passions and your desires. Whether you're a sicko dreaming about your neighbor's daughter, or you're a young guy making a new invention and will soon be a billionaire tycoon, or you're a spiritual adept writing and commenting and on spiritual art or whatever, and on a holy mission from God, so to speak, to do the Blues Brothers, right? um whatever that purpose is, it's not for us to tell you. It is just for us to um, say, here's the genius that we're each after for ourselves, and we can fortify that in each other through our community, and that creates enlightened community, and that's really what the church is about.
I'd like to watch some of that. Definitely. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I wish you'd look through our YouTube channel. I think I have great things, and my personal blog. I think there's really great stuff there. And I'll warn you, on the blog, you may have to read through things without understanding and come back to it later. But if you
Right.
can read, if you can read like that, you'll get a lot out of the blog.
No, I
that
definitely
that's
will check
actually
it.
that's actually how I found him. He had put up an article on his from his blog a year ago. I think it was like a year ago, something like that.
Uh,
And I read it and I was like, dang, I want to talk to him because I have some questions. And that's how we got to the discussion that we at
That's
right now.
awesome. I mean
Because
that's really
you
cool because
you
there's not
you're
a lot of people out there that like actually write their articles and then people submit questions that they never get back to them. So like there's not a lot of people out there. So kudos to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I'm eager to ask questions. I have something to say. I have something I think that's important to say. And to get somebody to ask me a question, that's heaven on earth. So thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. This kind of goes into like perception and I have two things. They kind of run a little parallel. The first part of it, you're talking about conscious minds. And how deep do you think that the human spirit, the mind, conscience to understanding, or how deep do you think it can go for understanding or discerning knowledge at hand from
When you say knowledge at
from,
hand, what do you mean?
from what we know from what we perceive knowledge to be today, from what we understand it. Although like today it seems to be something out of the woodworks is coming out that mainstream academia lied about it again, like 1 + 1 = -8 today. It's like, some stupid shit like that.
And of course the problems of academia. Oh, what a brilliant sidebar, but we would be way sidetracked. I can say this: if 70s academia was spot on, their excesses, created interesting ideas that got lost. I think of things like Robert Bly with his whole Iron John thing and formulating his retreats where men who are not allowed to cry can go to cry and talk about their problems. And you had a lot of that, and the self help industry rose up from a lot of that. So there is something to say about that today. um Academia has gone really off the rail. It has now taken in pseudoscience for its gender studies and um, created a massive destructive politics. It's led its students. You can see that they haven't learned critical thinking because how can you be out there, rooting for Hamas, an international terrorist organization? I realize what Israel is doing is horrific right now in its response, but the situation is way more complicated, and you're not going to get your government to underdo some 80 years of policy because you all got mad and destroyed the commencement exercises and fundraising efforts for your institution. They could just stop throwing paint on paintings and blocking streets. They're just brats that know a little bit of a story, and a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing. So we can bring that even back to the critical thinking that goes into our discovery of the self. And here, the brain is a trickster because it will fool you. I know it. I quit smoking now. I'm never going to have a cigarette again. Yeah, right.
or
So,
that beer.
yeah, or that beer, or fill in the blank. You know what I'm saying? You devil, you. Um,
I
but
promise I won't drink again. I promise. I promise.
as you're puking over the porcelain chamber there, and
Oh, I'm never doing this again.
yeah. And what you really meant was, well, I'm not doing whiskey again. I'll switch to gin.
Right.
Or maybe I just take it easy. Just a little, just maybe one less drink.
um, there's a difference between, of course, feeding our desires, uh, and addiction and things like that. But I can, as a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody today about, the French symbolists and how that affected the beatniks and the hippies, through a tradition that had as one of its thing, drug imbibition for the distortion of the mind to shake off the ego or consciousness or what have you. And Jim Morrison was caught up in this, and he was really a very deep and thoughtful man, but everybody latches on to the drug taking taboo. I can't admit in public that, if I'm a weekend warrior and a couple of bags of heroin and I'm really happy. These people have to do it in closets and back rooms because society makes it very difficult. Um, and while that's practical behavior, and the chance you take when you run to your dealer, uh, while that's practical behavior in that regard, you can't just casually say to your boss, well, Friday night, me and my buddy get together, or, I just want the Yankees and, a couple of bags, and I'm really good, till about Sunday afternoon, and then I go to bed, whatever it is. And that should not be sinful to admit to. That should not be shameful. Now, our vices can be, don't aren't necessarily drugs or kinky sexuality or sexuality or what have you. Our vices can be making sure there's never a dirty dish in the sink,
Yeah.
keeping the car polished. The
Vacuuming the
neuroses.
floor.
Yeah, vacuuming the floor repeatedly.
Listen, keeping it simple. Keep it
Well,
simple, people.
whatever your vice is, what's wrong with it? It's your vice. And I'm not going to take the judge. I'm just going to let you know there's a span of vices as there are a span of human beings on the earth. So, if we start to say, well, this is correct behavior and that's not, we've now began to create our own internal fascist cult because we're saying, there's us in the in group and there's them who don't know. And that just doesn't exist, whatever your path is. And if your path doesn't come across us, and using Gnostic terminology and sounding all highfalutin and crap, then it is what it is. And still, if that's a way of you finding a gesture on Sunday to come and bring your family and give them a little bit of spiritual feeling, then you can do that without walking out feeling dirty and sinful and a hypocrite, because we're not going to give you thou shalt not. But there's doctrine to follow. There's you had mentioned consciousness. Consciousness is the outer thought, the experience of what we see in the outer world. And the outer world can be the room around you as much as the concept of, you can see the map of Europe and Africa and Australia and all that. So we have it that we can view it from the inner world, but we can see it. We comprehend the outer world intellectually. We comprehend ourselves. It's the stream of thought going through our heads. But there's a certain substrate that's right there, that's right underneath it, and that's where your thinking and decisions really take place. That explains the order of your thoughts. I like to give a very simple exercise. I like to make silly songs about my doggy. How people do that, comedy, Weird Al Yankovic and this and that, So I
Yep.
might take, the national anthem and, do something on my dog. He's a dumb, dumb doggy, barking all the day
I
long.
do that from time to time as well.
Yeah. Well, where do those creative thoughts come from? Because that's the creative layer. That's not in your stream of thoughts. When you respond to me in conversation, that's spoken spontaneously. That's coming before your stream of thoughts and operating into it. Even the reflections and ruminations you have over what I'm saying are taking place more in the background than in the foreground. So we have this substrate. And this goes into what would be doctrinal teaching, but it has to be that we bring experience to you, that you understand there is a process. If you ask me, do I believe in God? I'll tell you no. There's that which I know and that which I don't know. But I will tell you that Gnostic praxis is a way to directly experience God. So I don't have to believe. I don't believe in you. I know you're alive. You're right there. I've
Yep.
seen you. I've talked to you. So why would I have to believe in you?
Right.
That's why it always brings me back to savant syndrome, because a lot of the stuff, I don't know if you know what it is, Paul, but I won't question your intelligence. But when you go to look at savant syndrome, you see it seems like these individuals with this, I don't know what to call it, I don't know what the proper word is, but with
Are you
this,
talking about the idiot savant?
yeah, those, yeah, yeah, mhm.
That's the idiot savant.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't know that. I know they change the terms all the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure, I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna question.
Thelonious Monk, Mozart, these guys were idiot savants.
I think I've actually heard that term before more. Now that you say it, because
Yeah.
it does ring a bell.
Thelonious Monk just stood there in the morning and his wife dressed him. You know what I'm saying? He was just not really on this planet. But when he sat at that piano, it was pure genius coming through. He was a deep, abiding Gnostic. You know, Mozart in the same way, he was lost in the Roman Church and suffered a lot with all that crap, but he heard the inner genius and he expressed it in terms of pure beauty, and encapsulated, the era of classical music before the Romantics came along. And his student was Beethoven, the one who created Romanticism. So you see, great genius is, these people knew who they were, what they wanted, and they followed that desire. And however they managed to put their lives together, however they scraped for their subsistence, they did. Some get it through their performance or their art or whatever directly, and others still go to McDonald's at night.
Right. Perception.
Yeah. So,
What
what is your genius? I'm asking that rhetorically. You don't have to come on.
I got a question for you.
$5 a question, $10 an answer, 15 if you want the right answer, and 20 if you want that with sincerity.
Well, if you ever have to go to the bathroom, mention my name, you get a good seat. That's
You
from my
going for the
grandfather.
$20 plan, I see.
It's so funny. I want to get back onto this idiot syndrome because you taught me something new, right?
Okay.
And you're right, it actually is. It was actually at one time called that, and I wonder why that. And that goes back to my theory about how we probably use when our civilization started around the time when we started taking, instead of getting rid of the babies and throwing them off of cliffs because they were disabled or they were premature or whatever, or they weren't the strongest in the crew and they were more of a problem than part of a helper for the tribe. And when they started letting these savant people with savant syndrome, now that I know it was actually called idiot syndrome, which I want to know why they called it that because they
Well,
was
we can go into something also very important in ancient shamanism, and what might be called idiot syndrome was considered, especially in the East, the God speaking through the person. That person becomes admired as a prophet, a voice of the gods or God.
You
Um,
know what? That sounds like Moses now. Does it not?
well,
Well, it's kind of like a lot of autism. A lot of autism, and
Well,
people in the in the
that
autistic spectrum, they can't lie. So they do nothing but tell the truth. They can't lie because they don't know how.
yeah, but their intellects are also diminished.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started getting a little silly, and I apologize.
No, that was
What
fun. I like how that goes. Remember
There
last
we
time that
go.
happened too.
But I want to
But
feel I want to feel the next question he was about to tell us.
Okay.
yeah, just the mention, or I had said perception, and there's a thing that there's a saying that I tell myself: reality is perception, and perception is reality. But reality is what you make it. So my question to you, for me, I like to know the differences between like what Rebirth sees, what my neighbor sees, what like I see, like outside the box, kind of like the Johari window, looking at oneself, looking at the outside perspectives. How do you perceive reality? What do
First,
you see? What
first,
what goes through
first of
your
all, first of all, you prefaced your question with a statement about synchronicity. The inner world and the outer world have a direct correspondence, and that's really what the law of synchronicity is about. So you create your world. And though others are in your world, both people, beings, and objects, and concepts, and what have you, are all part of your world. And yes, we can prove the human eye sees the same color, red, but you really like this song and I hate it. I'm saying? I really like that song and you're indifferent to it. It's perception is still relative to each star, relative to each of us as evolving souls, and how we are much aware of it. If we take a sleeping soul, somebody who doesn't look at any life within, who just follows the dictates of the world, etc., who is, the anti-Gnostic, well, that's a sleeper. He has no tools to evaluate his life. And so these processes are, I lost my train of thought, but these processes, aren't going on for the sleeper, whereas the person waking up has a changing experience. Now I know where I was going. Think of how unaware the 2 year old baby is around you and how unaware you were at 2 years old. How that doesn't even shape into an earliest memory till you're like four, for most on average. And so as you become aware of the world, well, you're really putting that together, and you're constantly putting everything that you experience in relation to yourself, whether for better, for worse, or for neither. And all of this shapes um, what you see. So when you know uh, we hear somebody say something, and our neighbor also hears it, well, our neighbor has a completely different take on what was said
Hmm.
because it's feeding a different experience. The neighbor might have heard the same words or may misremember. You see a lot of this with social dialogue where people, seem to ignore the core thing in your response or your statement, and they just talk about the other half of the sentence. And they
I.e.,
really
being
did.
on a different frequency.
Well, they really didn't see it. It didn't, occur to them. They had no tool for the concept, so they've lost now any chance of dialogue, right? Because how can you
Hmm.
respond to them rationally when their questions become irrational and even turn into accusations?
Right. Because they weren't on that frequency. They weren't exactly tuned in to see the what exactly went on.
Yeah, they're sleepers. They don't see, when the American Indian, the Aboriginal, first saw European boats in the distance, they couldn't see them. They had no concept of a boat. They rode in canoes. And that big ship just off, the coast was invisible to them because they had no concept of a big ship. It took some time for that to
Right.
become recognizable. And we are all that way. If we have no concept in place, then we can't, put two sentences together, bridge ideas. So we have the responsibility to have, shall we say, an informed and well-rounded bed upon which to perceive new things and develop, powerful ideas.
Okay. Still, how do in the world do you see this as a world that can be fixed, a shitty world, or is it going to be a good thing on in the end?
The world
That,
has
that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you perceive the world? Like you
the
personally, how do you perceive
the
the world
world is
in this
perfect.
reality?
The
In
world is
reality,
the world is perfect as it is, and it is the best of all possible worlds.
all right. I, I like that. I like that answer. Which
It
reason why?
has every type of thought and every type of being expressing it. And the uncertainty of the world is something that people have to learn to live with. Instead of saying everyone's fucked up for seeing a different way, to having a different vision, you know, and this is, in society, we rope some of that in with our, legal structure. And that allows, for a defining of society, you know, uh, What's my thought again?
Oh, it's okay. But the reason why I asked that is because in the last episode you said that there's no heaven or hell. I was just wondering if there were a heaven or hell, how would you imagine both of them?
No, I'm not going there because I don't want to. Uh,
I'm not saying that they exist.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn said that the way to overcome tyranny is to not repeat the lie.
Right.
Mm,
So I don't need to go into the lie of heaven and hell and all of its uh, propaganda being, aiding and abetting the further destruction of the soul in our society. I just don't want to be a part of that force. That force will be there; it will never go away, and there's plenty of people that feed it. I just choose my side.
Well, or personally, I believe that it's not a place like a fiery lake of hell or this place with giant pillars and pearls and golden roads. I think personally, our heaven, the way I imagine it, is peace. Your heaven is your peace, and without that peace would
Peace will
be hell.
destroy you. It's the first element of corruption of the cell. Without the constant and even violent struggle to place your being and your beingness into the world, you know, uh, peace is a balance to how we manifest that. And some need a little more peace and a little less struggle. Some like a lot of struggle. There's the warrior who wants to go to war. So uh, I don't accept the concept of peace because if we had peace, we'd all eventually not be able to do anything.
it's crazy when I was in the military, when I was in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Um,
I
like when I
wasn't
went,
referring, sorry, I wasn't referring to like more of like world peace. I was like inner peace. Your inner
But
peace would be
even inner peace, the struggle is over. The process of becoming and participating in the world is ended. You have no desire, thus you have no self, because your self comes through your desire and your ambition. It comes from following your bliss, doing your will. So the second that goes, you're back to zombie land. You've been defeated, no matter what you've done.
it's almost being recognized for doing one bad thing versus the thousand good things that you've done.
We'll never do anything perfectly.
Right.
We can find flaws with a Beethoven symphony easily enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But we can't, uh, we can't not recognize the genius of that symphony and to be moved by it as we study it and learn about what is going on in the movement of music. And the same could be said to any music form that you enjoy as a music form or any form of art of any sort, painting, sculpture, movie, etc., that you enjoy in an aesthetic format. But the aesthetic format is something you have to have a relationship with and you have to understand. Go see a Dali painting and go see a Picasso, and read Rousseau and Baudelaire. Fill yourself with the humanities and understand history, as it occurs in our culture and how it's developed to get us to where we are now, so that you understand your relationship with the world. So therefore, the conditions upon which you are forming yourself. within which you are forming yourself. And understanding those conditions teaches you how to navigate that manifest your will, that you follow that inner drive comes forth from you.
I told you he gets deep with it, Trevor. I told you. You asked him, he gets very deep with it because
I,
I
I understand it totally.
no, no, I'm just saying, like he gets really deep with it. I remember just the discussion, man. Our discussion actually went on for like 3 hours. I just had to cut it because we got really deep into it, like to the point where we was going on and on. So
It was a lot of fun.
yeah, it was, and just like this one is, just like this one,
Yep.
like he's going to give you. He doesn't sugarcoat like he that's matter of fact. The reason why I connected so well with him because when we was on Facebook, he was having a discussion with somebody, and what stood out the most was he asked somebody. He said, I can't remember what it was exactly, but he asked them just like how he asked the question today was, "What's your understanding of religious?" So that you base both of you guys can have a basic understanding of how to go about the conversation. And I was like, man, that's exactly what I do. Like instead of going further into the conversation, I need to understand what you think of this, and then I need to understand, and you need to understand what I think, and that way we can have a better understanding. So that way we ain't going around in circles.
Yeah, we start to speak in mutual terms
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Right.
because yeah, exactly. And that's why I like about it
Round table.
because yeah, exactly. Because most people won't do that. Like people won't say, "Hey, well, I mean, we already know that, Trevor. We talked about it in
Right.
the past already." But understanding the basics of what somebody's talking about is the best way to have a dialogue because that way you can be like, oh, "Okay, now I
Maybe
understand what you exactly."
Uh, I think most people out there are frauds. So,
But
yeah, I
you,
think they're make it as you go mystics.
well, yeah, I agree with you.
So, I'm not well liked.
Those are the people I like because those are the ones that speak the truth. Because birds of a feather flock together, and the ones that want to get down to the nitty gritty seem to flock together like us, and the other ones are still fucking blowing fluff up their asses.
Now you know the nature of community.
Right?
These are the type of conversations we have in Twitter space. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but they have where it's basically you can have like a chat room live with people talking, and you can have a host and two co-hosts, and you can have a discussion. You can talk. You have people come up and ask questions and talk and this, that, and the third. It's a great way to communicate with people, especially if you're trying to promote something like your book. Because I always tell people the only reason why I do it is because I'm trying to promote my book. I never told you I'm writing a book. I'm on chapter 6 right now.
Cool,
Yeah. So
cool.
yeah.
Good
Oh yeah,
luck with
Trevor.
it.
He's an author too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I have two of his books. I can't remember how many books he's wrote. I know he's wrote a lot. Like right.
Yeah, I got about 25
Yeah.
on Amazon.
Yeah. I
Uh,
got like two of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, and that's what I'm saying, and that's why I actually, matter of fact, remember, Paul, I told you I was going to get a Kindle because you said you have them on Kindle on Amazon too, on e-reading and stuff
yeah. I
like
even
that.
have a couple of them as talking. You can download it as a talking
Yeah.
book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Audio books. Yep.
audio book.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I said when I told because I always tell them I said I always try to talk to people that I've read books from. I like how people like I try to do the same thing. Like talk, if I'm doing something and I have something to say, I should be able to answer people's questions, and I shouldn't always charge for it. You know what I mean?
I need to get me a Kindle.
Well, yeah. I need somebody to engage as the church in that. I'm killing myself trying to put up 2 videos a week on YouTube. We've managed to increase our listenership a little bit, and trying to make that work as a vehicle for our church. So that's taken really all my time. I do my morning memes and a couple of morning emails, and I'm pretty much done. you know um I just finished the script for the next video, but it's just the first draft. I probably got to rewrite it, and I got to get that read by Saturday afternoon when I get home from work. I'm lucky that I had the day off today. I was able to put up the video that I subtitle our Kabbalah class. And that's really worth seeing, the Kabbalah classroom. We just put up lesson 4, but you'll find them right when if you go to the videos on our YouTube page. And
I'll check them out.
if you have an interest in Kabbalah already, it can really explain things. If you don't really know the Kabbalah, it's going to be one of those things you're going to have to listen to without understanding.
I have a general concept of what it is. So yeah, I'm definitely interested. Like, even if I don't fully understand it, I can grasp enough of the history to know that it's been there for a long time and it's a thing,
Cool,
and wrap my head around that aspect.
cool. Do you have another question?
Um, no, that's pretty much it. Um,
Okay, so
or
I, you know,
here's a weird question. Weird question.
okay,
Because the
okay.
Anunnaki was what and the Nephilim and all that stuff was mentioned in the last discussion. Um, Jesus, an alien? Yes or no? He did say, I am not from this earth. He did say that in the good.
Never existed. Well, any reference to
But
him
I'm just
is,
saying, like, wouldn't like
well,
if he's not from this earth, would he
but
not be alien or is he an Anunnaki? Because if the Anunnaki were fallen from heaven, I'm just saying, like, if we're all true, would he
Pinocchio,
not be an Anunnaki as well?
Pinocchio, is he really an alien? Is he really real as well? How about, I don't know, Rudolph? Is he an alien? Is he real?
It's about
That's
it's
what
funny.
the whole Jesus thing sounds like to me. Okay,
Well,
so it's a belief system that I don't acknowledge. I don't speculate on. You know,
well, I don't believe that the way that it was presented to us. I do believe Yeshua, which was his name, he was a man that did exist and did do these things. However, he's just not exactly who it was presented to us in the biblical scriptures.
now again, that's a belief. You can have it. You know,
Mm,
um, but I don't.
okay, cool. I mean, different strokes from different folks, right? That's always a good thing, especially to learn different possibilities, learn like other aspects, and like, hey, let me pick your brain. Like, ask me questions too. It's like, that's what we're all supposed to be here for, not for like, oh, my yours or fucking, like I don't agree with your shit, but I like yours, but mine's a little bit different. That's what I like. We're all different. As we were saying, like God is you, God is me, God is everything. God is experiencing because God is neither here nor there. Nothing that doesn't have a physical body. So God is experiencing life through my eyes. God is experiencing life through your eyes, and through even the atoms that are holding my trash bin together. Fucking like God is everything. God is the experience, and that's what I like because if we were all the same, this would be a fucked up place. I would have off myself years ago.
um, yeah, yeah. I'm not going to disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. We all have our own experience of ourselves as the divine, and that's a so-called secret inner knowledge that isn't a secret. It's just you have to, delve into that place that is yours, and whatever is really and truly in you will come out.
Mhm.
And uh, that will always leave the world as a mixture of all beings and all things, and we'll all struggle to stay alive in our own way, and with whatever advantages or disadvantages we're born into. Right of birth has something to do with it. um and so uh, all those different experiences come together in this complex world. And to say there's a new and better world somewhere else, a pleroma, heaven, or whatever, is pure nihilism because it's saying there's a better world than this world. And that means this world is either evil or worthless or an illusion or what have you.
Mm.
And so what you have is people being taught through their belief structures, how not to be anything in this world, how to just simply serve the machine of the world. And that is really the nature of the sleeping person. So when we kill the soul through believing, we've relieved ourselves of the struggle of understanding that concept in a deeper way by learning how to effectively speculate on it, to ask questions about it in relation to the self. This has been called the dialogue of the Savior. We simply call it the Gnostic dialogue.
Kind of reminds me of a mushroom trip that I went on. I went on a very big mushroom trip, and it lasted for about a good 7 hours. I had taken roughly 4 grams of what they call white penis envy, and I mean, these things were like sausages, and they were big and fat, and I ate all of it. And I went on a nice little trip. And before I had done this, I didn't just go into like, hey man, I'm gonna go on a trip, I want to get an experience. No, I had questions that I had meditated on for a long time. I went into this with a clear mind, like clear questions that I focused on all day long before I even thought about eating these mushrooms. And so later on that evening, probably about, I'm gonna say 7, 8 o'clock at night, I decided to take them. And so I went on my trip, and through this experience, my main question was, how do I connect to the source? How do I connect to one another? How do I connect to my neighbor? How do I connect to this blade of grass? Well, I got my answer. Like, if the universe was God's throne, I saw the creation from a tiny little molecule form into a tiny little rock, to a little piece of sand, and then it formed into a rock. And then eventually things started creating, and it spread it out to more earth. And then I saw blades of grass, the trees, into life, like wildlife. And I just saw how it all blended together, and how I connected to it, and it connected to me, to my neighbors. And I got my answers. And it was the most beautiful, most fucking profound experience I've ever had. And if I could go back to that, oh fucking hey man, you send me a one, give me a one-way ticket. I'm going. But like, it was the most profound, wonderful experience that I've ever had. And what you saying that just reminded me of that.
I had my own psychedelic experiences, many years ago now. So, I can relate to what you were feeling. Uh, and, its profundity belongs to you. Uh, it's not something that, that is what you put out into the world. It's something that helps you to formulate that which is within yourself. That you're taking that out of the mode of your normal thought, and all the things are scrambled. And so you understand what the French symbolists were after by drinking absinthe, and what the beatniks were after, smoking their weed. You know, and then of course what the hippies did with the whole psychedelic revolution, Ken Kesey and the Magic Bus. So there is there is a line of creative people that come down to us through this philosophical system, through this mode of practice of that system. And they may look, extreme in their, uh, dysfunctional art and behavior. And yet they're the geniuses of tomorrow. So we we take a step, what we learn from this is we take a step outside of societal norms sometimes to put out ourselves. There's a sacrifice. Bing Crosby, really wasn't there for his kids. He was always filming. The rock star that, eventually buys into his PR and burns out. Um, and there's lesser and greater greats among us, right? The guy, the auto mechanic on the street corner can have the best station around and one with, customers that trust and accept his work. And yet the finer businessman that's, operating that small company from his own little cubbyhole in the world somewhere, uh, he's doing it his way. The artist in the gallery, is doing it his way. And some will become great, some will become mediocre, and some will become nothing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I was once in music industry, and I stepped out. So I could have been something, but I chose to step out because I had some health issues go wrong, and so in the music industry, I could
Right.
have like been like a mainstream artist by now.
No.
You
If
could
I
have been a
put that much more
contender.
effort into it, I could have furthered a record contract and been on main stage. But it didn't happen. I went down this road,
Yeah.
and I'm happier down this road. I'm glad that my life path brought me to where I'm at today.
You find that no matter how much the dilemma and anguish of the moment leads to a greater joy, and you find that sometimes something's steering you through life. And that sense of destiny, that feeling there is um it's an indicator of something that you also need to look at. It's there's something that you're not seeing, and whatever that might be, you have to kind of really ruminate over that. And
Hmm.
what are the forces internally, externally, that brought you to respond in the way you responded, and had the change in destiny that you had. Right. And that's a Gnostic process, because that's you um dialoguing with yourself, and your own inner voice. And you got to make decisions that, it's one way or the other, and which one's really the right way to go, or maybe there's three or four choices, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, which one's the way to go? That can be very, very difficult. So um
So I say you gotta
you
pick your choices. You pick
yeah.
pick
But
one of
when the choice that you make is what you do,
them. Yep.
and you find that took you somewhere,
Yep.
and wherever that somewhere is, you'll go from there to somewhere else,
Yep.
and you'll find that you're creating your destiny by constantly following your situation and the opportunity in front of you.
Yep. Because you know where you want to go. You just don't understand how to get there, basically. And trial and error will get you there. You
Well,
following
there's the power
somebody
of
else's.
manifestation.
Yeah, I
That's the
mean,
power of manifestation, and a lot of people can't see themselves in the future in a situation like that. They have to believe it that they already had it in the past, that they already have it in their hands today, and that they have it in their hands already in the future. They just have to manifest it, believe it without any ounce of doubt, and call it out into the ether. I like,
See, I say that that's an entirely superstitious process. That's just
I
fancy dancy hermetic terminology for, praying to the angels. And it it really gets you nothing. You're not going to manifest anything by imagining you having it on a future date or you already have it. That's new age garbage, really, from the Gnostic perspective. Okay. And um, the reason for that is you're um, imagining a misinterpretation of quantum mechanics, and the misrepresentation is really, an anti-science. It makes no sense in the end. You know, you're not. The universe doesn't give a shit about human thought. So, when you say, a ruby ring, the universe don't hear nothing from your vibration. It does not read ruby ring. That's your language of your outer consciousness. So your inner
well,
consciousness creates your world.
I respect that. I 100% respect that. I'm gonna have to disagree just for the simple fact of earlier this year, I I got finally I'll be 42 on the 14th. Then my birthday's coming up. And this year I finally had enough and I said I thought about it for a long time and I called it out and I said, this is the year for the shit that I've lost, that I've missed out on, that was stolen from me, the shit that was rightfully mine. This is the year that it's going to change. My situation's going to change. My finances are going to change. I'm going to go places. This podcast is going to take off. I'll be damned if the fucking universe didn't hear me because I now have a little bit of money. I'm planning a trip going over to Germany, Greece, and Amsterdam overseas. Going to spend about a month and a half. And like, I'll be damned the universe didn't fucking hear me. And I would have never had this shit. I'm living on disability. I barely make $927 a month. That's just because of the social security that I put into the system. And like, I'll be damned if the universe didn't hear me. So I'm gonna have to physically disagree because my bank account says so, and also this opportunity that I don't even have to pay for. A friend offered to bring me over there to do this. This would have never happened. I'm going to go like to megalithic sites, castles, and all sorts of different stuff that he wants to show me or like show around. I mean, I'm going to Greece. I'm going to fucking Athens. I'm going like that's a once in a lifetime trip right there. And that would have
So,
never happened. And so I said, I demand it and it is done. It's mine. And guess what? Here it is.
and you really believe that this was delivered to you by what kind of beings?
I believed it. It was me in my connection of God saying, me being God, God being me, that I'm claiming this. I've figured it out. I'm claiming this. I'm doing this. This is my time. This is the right time. This is going to happen. Great things are going to happen from this, not just for me,
I
but for the rest of the world.
I know I have no way to wedge in between you and your belief. So I don't have, a rational response for you. I see coincidence where you see, um, a supernatural event. And it is what it is.
Right? It is what it is. Do you believe in coincidence?
I believe in synchronicity. And I shouldn't say I believe in it. Synchronicity is an experience where you recognize the landscape of your inner life with your outer life.
Hmm.
And um, it's it has its uncanny reflections uh, that give us pause or double take on something. And there's nothing supernatural, about this. There's nothing supernatural that will serve the universe. Because if there was, the first person that discovered it would be the immortal king of everything, and we would have been slaves long before you ever could have read a book. So,
So, are we technically immortal if our spirits pass on into, or our energies, our consciousness passes on? Like once we exit this corporeal meat sack, do we not become? Are we still not immortal? Just not in this physical realm, but still moving on to the next?
I say to the beginning Gnostic, what does it matter? It's just an excuse to move away from the thought of the present moment in the current life, in the current world, at this current time. And that I find to be all mind absorbing. So if I'm worrying about, afterlives and uh, reincarnation or what have you, um, I've lost the moment. I've lost my connection to spirit. It robs my soul. Bummer.
Well, it's different strokes for different folks, and everyone's experience is different from another. I mean, my
Well,
existence
I'm
is
just trying
your
to
existence,
explain to you what
right?
Gnosticism is. That's all I'm trying to do is explain
Hmm.
to you what Gnosticism is.
Hmm.
And it's, something that's outside the normal suppositions that people have in the common paradigm of belief systems. And uh, in trying to present that difference, uh, it either comes at you as an evaluation of your experience, to this point, a rumination over maybe the course of your life. Does it produce something like that? If it does, then we've got you on a Gnostic into a Gnostic development, that your inner genius comes out, whatever that may be. And we can disagree on all sorts of particular things, but we'll never be able to argue over your genius. It will be manifest and self manifest in the world.
Hmm.
Yeah, I want to start using that. You can't argue your genius.
Yeah, that's really it. What is your genius? If this is a successful podcast, then you'll see that your genius has been emerging through the path you took to make it successful. What you guys had to do, the decisions you made, and what you actually did.
Yep.
You know,
Actions
it,
speak louder than words.
Yep.
it's the number one thing, and that you do doesn't mean that you'll be rewarded. You may
Yep.
do, and your project may fail. And, one or both of you may find despair after that, or bad luck, or what have you. You know, it is what it is because we mourn change, and we invest our ego, in our surroundings and think they'll be that way forever.
No,
And
and
every
everything is subject to change.
Yeah, everything changes. So you have to come to develop the ego as understanding the worlds of change and the progression of time, and that's a whole other thought, really. It takes us down yet another byway.
Told you he be getting deep with it, man. You ain't got to cry, Trevor. Dang.
No, no, I've had some skin on the inside of my eyeglasses, so I figured my eyebrows all I have eczema in my eyebrows, so it's like,
Come on, I thought it was my moving speech. That was so moving.
wait, let me cry, let me rustle up some
Yeah,
crocodile tears real quick.
there's birds crying in my
Oh my
backyard
God,
right
man,
now.
that was so
There we
beautiful.
go.
You touched me right here. You struck my feelers right here.
I'm
Thank you.
being I'm
Yeah.
being humiliated on this podcast. Who's the moderator here?
No, but that's serious because it all goes back to the person within, taking responsibility for your own actions. Things might not always come out to be what you want it to be. No matter how hard you work for it, you may never reach that mountain peak that you thought you might reach. And there will be trial and error. Shit, I know I have had speaking of podcasts, I started off with my website, and last year I hit 100,000 views in 1 year. And now every year before that, it was between 15 to 50, but then out of nowhere, just 100,000. And then this year, right now, I'm already almost close to 60,000, and it's not even the end of the year. So for one, I must be doing something right because people taking the time to read something on my website is just amazing by itself. And then just to have that kind of information and having discussions like with you, getting a different perspective because like I said, we had these discussions on the Twitter space, and I'm just like you. Before I even get into a discussion with anybody, if they ask me a question or anything, I have to understand exactly what they mean, so that way I have a level playing field. Because once you try to change something up on me, that just means that you're starting to take your emotions and put your emotions in your beliefs, and your beliefs control your emotions, and your emotions control your beliefs, and then at that point, you don't even care about the truth. You just hear what somebody else you want to hear what you said in somebody else's mouth come out of somebody else's mouth basically. So I just you know I, to
That's
me
one thing I've loved about this conversation. Loved everything that's come out of everyone's mouth.
well, I told you he's like that. I told you. I say he's very blunt, he's very honest, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He's just like us. He doesn't have time for that because at that point you're not doing your due diligence and having a discussion. You're just avoiding things. If you just tell somebody, hey, I think that's dumb, then that's just dumb. I mean, we all talk different ways. I mean, we can't take offense to it. He says he definitely use matter of fact, I feel like sometimes you watch a lot of comedy, don't you, Paul?
Um, I like comedy. I'm busy telling jokes.
Yes, yeah, I can tell because you're always telling jokes and you tell them in a serious way to make people pay attention. And that's something that Dave
Well,
Chappelle does too, because Dave Chappelle would do that in his comedy shows a lot.
true story. This just goes back a few years. I'm substitute teaching, and I need some extra income, so I go over to Home Depot and become a cashier. The jokes I told and the way I ran my cash register, I became known in three other stores in the area. The funny guy over at the Bennington store. And guys came and parked in the distance to watch me do my routines at self checkout. One day I was just mocking everybody's clothes as they came along. Now it's a silly, witty genius, and I have a wicked sense of humor. Um, and yet, well, it's a silly genius, but yet it is a star shining brightly and showing that even in the lowest job, can someone be a boon to the world around them to make some sort of impression? You don't have to be Beethoven. Yeah, and the bright light will show through in any situation. So, if this project fails, the light's still there when you've made that connection. When you've connected with the creative force in yourself, and you go through the changes and you follow into the places that creative force takes you, and where that takes you not may or may not be approved by the people around you. So understand your relationship to reality.
At that point, I think the ultimate thing is just to make someone smile.
Yeah, I mean, what we bring into the world, into our immediate surroundings, and into our interactions with strangers, all of that makes life fun. I trade jokes, with the people that I have to interrelate relate with on the job, and in some places I go, it can get very silly,
Right.
and
I totally understand. My mom, she worked at Home Depot. She worked down in the pro desk and like she worked the cash register down that end. So hearing the war stories from her through through just being a cash register there and then working over at pro, it's just like what the hell?
Yeah,
So
I'm
like I
I'm
I,
glad
I
I don't
applaud
work
you.
there anymore. I don't work there anymore. I finally couldn't take it anymore.
But I
Yeah.
applaud you, sir.
Well, I kept working towards, my own goal as, somebody very close to retirement age. And uh and that's just where things have led me financially. And I've had synchronistic experiences where finance was able to help us, but I'm still struggling to get the physical building of the church up and running. I think we got rid of the bee's nest. We'll see. It looked pretty good yesterday so that we can get the building painted. um
Yeah, you just had got the roof done, or the not the roof. Was it the roof?
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
got the roof done. We just got the roof done.
Yep.
Yeah, and we were fortunate in both cases to have insurance and other money come our way that we were able to do it. Um,
Yeah, he owns an actual physical church, bro.
That's cool. Like
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yep.
The Gnostic Church of Light is the first uh self-owned, church. We don't have a mortgage, and actual Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas. So
That's
our
cool.
building is historic. Our congregation is historic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I told you I'd be talking into some respectable people, bro. Like it's amazing the stuff. Because when I met him a year ago, I think what the you had a bad storm that came and took off the roof. What, like 8 months ago, right? 8 9 months or a few months ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Whatever. Yeah.
because he's not really on Facebook. He has a Reddit account too. He's on Reddit also.
Yeah. You read it. I keep my blog and my Substack, and um the YouTube channel is very, very important. And then the church has its own blog
Yep.
for all our services.
Yep.
So that's a lot of stuff that I run.
Yep.
I got my nephew getting stuff onto TikTok and what's the Facebook version?
The reels,
Not the Reels, but the other one,
Instagram.
uh, Instagram.
Yeah.
And so um, he's doing that where a church member is taking the 5-minute videos I do and breaking it up
Yeah.
into like 1 minute segments so that there'll be shorts on YouTube pointing back to the original video.
Yeah.
Hmm, cool.
And, and it's brought up our listenership a little bit, this strategy. TikTok is just doesn't seem to be working. But my nephew thinks he can bring up the algorithm. Um,
I'm telling you, Twitter Spaces is where it's at. Like, if you have like an
Yep.
hour just to have a discussion, you open Twitter Space up, call it like Gnosticism or something like that. And once you start building people in, people will start coming out, and you'll spend hours holding a discussion. If you do it now, you already got two people who will definitely jump in. And because we
but you
already
People
see,
know,
people
I
post up
did it.
spaces up with their friends. They'll that their friends will invite friends, and then pretty soon you got like 1,000 people up in the spaces just listening to you. Then boom, you're a
it's a
celebrity right
it's a
there.
Yeah.
it's a different world than Facebook.
Well, I got into the spaces and created a space even, and nobody talks on it in the Gnostic vein. Uh, so I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Because and you have to kind of it's also a path. So where is my time?
Yep.
If
Yep.
I'm rushing to
Exactly.
get these other two videos out every week, and I gotta get the one to the girl that's breaking it up into minute segments, and we have to keep this kind of machine rolling. And there's pressure because I got to write the script at the same time, and you're recording it, and I have this
Yeah.
program that creates the pictures for you, and
Yep.
so you're rolling picture after picture after
I
picture.
told Trevor about that. I said, man, it's a lot. It's fun but it's very time consuming because you're watching. You have to figure out every single video. Like I told him, I said 1 hour discussion would have me video editing almost a week or two, just because
Yeah,
it gets so crazy.
oh
And
yeah.
it's just ridiculous. But once you get it published, and it's good to go.
Yep.
Yeah. It depends on what you're producing and
Hmm.
and how to balance your time carefully against that. What's the reality of it? Can I give it an hour a day, 2 hours a day? Can I do 6 hours on Sunday? What do I have the strength to practically do? And what, and that helps you to cut out too what you can't do.
Yep. That's why I
You
told
know,
him, I said, shit, I had to come up with a schedule a couple of weeks ago because I'm writing a book. I have my YouTube channel, I have my website, and then I have to update my social media. And I'm doing
yeah.
it by myself. And I'm just like, nah. I said this, and then I'm editing videos on top of that, and editing my articles too. Jesus Christ. I'm just like, Jesus, all this stuff at one time. And I'm just like,
It's busy, and you're trying to promote yourself in your in-depth study of the ancient world.
yeah,
And you have your own journey through that. It's fun seeing your posts show up in our church Facebook group, um, because there is a journey in the things that you're putting up. And for the newbies coming into spiritual archaeology, shall we say, from the newbies coming into all of that, there's stuff for them to grasp onto that. Forgive me, I got to duck outside for a second. Yeah, I dropped my cigarette, so I had to get it off the floor before the place starts getting icky. Um, but don't worry, I'll still smoke it. Uh,
10 seconds.
yeah. What were we talking about before I was so easily distracted?
Well, you was just basically just talking about everybody's journey, like how everybody has their own journey and
Yeah,
what's
follow your star.
yeah.
Your star is that inner core of your being that says, "I gotta." When you ask the painter why did he paint that, and he said, "Because I had to.
Right.
Something in me compelled me to do it, and I couldn't rest until I did it." And these were the masterpieces come from. These are the composers, just drinking wine and cheese for like 2 weeks on end, composing whatever they're working on,
Yeah.
obsessed with their time and ignoring the world around them. And so what is your particular desire? And whatever that is, that's what you need to follow. That's your path. And it comes in its own unexpected way. You can't predetermine it. It comes through what you do in the path that takes you on
Yeah.
because you make choices after choices as the path changes and adjusts and moves you through certain experiences.
Yep. It's like an RPG game, what they call role playing games, where if you do if you do a quest and there's like a decision within that quest, and it's like maybe three or four different decisions, and whatever decision you make will change the world in the video game. And I believe that I really believe that you can be on a path to being the greatest musician in the world, but the path that you take it might have taken you to where you're at now rather than there. Even if you was like to the point where like you was like, yeah, I felt like I changed my own path, but you actually changed your path the moment you started breathing. That was your out like I almost want to say that was your outer thoughts saying, hey, like I want to be here. If I want to be here, but your inner thoughts are like, hey, well, you're actually taking this route instead, you know?
I wanted to be the next Jim Morrison. Had a band that was about to catapult into regional status. Um, Before two guys flipped out and couldn't handle it. But um, because of that experience, I tried to put another band together, but I started doing other things as well. And those other things was my day job, and I tried to put a typesetting business together, and that got interrupted by family issues. Um, so then I moved into the piano business. I just got into sales, and I met somebody, and started making some good money, but living a very wild lifestyle at the same time. And um, I moved from that through some other, lucrative sales positions. Then I moved up to New York, you know, um, providing, insight for, a new piano company. I came in to really consult and teach them how to make a piano business. Next thing I knew, I found myself, long story short, selling gas and electric. And I had a kind of a rewarding career there too, but I still partied my ass off. Um, Eventually, I put enough money together to buy this church, and my dream became manifest. The dream I didn't know I had. When I started out, I wanted to be Jim Morrison, and I was going to bring culture to the world, and I give people, the vision, the rock and roll vision of ecstasy and spiritual power and potency. And my dream changed, and really before that, I was writing poetry. I was going to write the greatest poetry that ever was. I was going to
Mm-hmm.
mix with the French symbolists, and the American transcendentalists. And, I was too cool for you. So my path changed and developed. And I was doing, I named the church, more than 20 years before I bought the building. And um, I always ran it as, an exchange of ideas. But the next thing I know, I'm actually buying a building and I live in the house next to it. I was able to buy the house. So it can seem synchronous that what was inside of me that I didn't realize I'd be buying a building, finally came out into the world because it was there. I just didn't see it. And when it appeared, so to speak, I saw the synchronicity. I saw what I was building all along inside. And that's many years of, generating the ideas about the church, and something in the world of ideas, manifest in the material world. That's synchronicity. That's also discovering your path. And it took me late in life. I started the church in my 50s. So I was kind of late in life. I'm in my 60s now. So, um, we don't know what our path is before us and how we're going to put it together. But when we find it and we put it together, it becomes amazing. I'm writing stuff and both in my blog and the ideas I'm creating in my videos as stuff that, um, I think is truly inspired and, um, really brings modern Gnosticism to life. And I'm, writing a world of ideas that I find fascinating. And I'm thinking about all the different things I know from my years of acquiring things, and things are coming together in my head. And it's enervating, and it makes you want to do nothing but that.
Yeah, I
And
know that feeling.
so,
I know that
yeah.
feeling. That's why I said I'm saying I got my website, I got my book, I have my YouTube channel, I have the Twitter spaces, social media. It's just like, man, when am I going to take a break?
Writing another book. That's all
Yeah.
I say. Write another
Yep.
book.
Yep. And I already have a second one. I'm gonna write a children's book
Okay.
of the version of the one that I'm writing now.
Keep writing. It's the first magic, and it's really the only real magic. Keep writing. What you say, whether you say it verbally on a video blog, or, whether it's something that you write out as an article or a book, you're doing the magic of Thoth. It's the first magic. The pen truly is mightier than the sword. But the
No, it's
sword
not.
is your discrimination. It's your ability to, you know, um, decide where you're going to bring your thoughts, and where you're not going to bring your thoughts. And the sword comes in and, fights that battle, that you discipline yourself to, the task at hand.
Right on, right on. Well, I know you're fixed for time, and I do appreciate this conversation. I was wondering, can we do this again in about a month?
Yes, please.
Because I know Trevor's
Uh,
gonna.
just, we'll set it up if you like. I'm cool with that.
Okay, perfect,
Yes,
perfect.
please.